It only took us 67 episodes.
It only took us 67 episodes to get us
be
there.
relevant.
And maybe 60 of those episodes were terrible audio.
They were terrible.
So yeah, I would absolutely love to consider that. Hey yo everybody, what's up Instagram? Sorry if I sound a little stuffed up. I am. It's allergies. It's not COVID. I already had it. And I still can't taste anything sweet still.
That
and
sucks.
It's been since February, dude. Isn't that fucked up? I still can't.
That's really stuffed up. Yes.
I had a Reese's peanut butter cup and it tasted like mush.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I know. I was almost crying.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Well, on the line of food, I did one of those DNA tests with your hair to see like what kind of food you are like. I guess there's certain foods that make you more inflamed or your body is technically allergic to.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, every single food that I like is what I'm allergic to.
Oh shit, really? Okay,
I'm
we gotta talk about
mad.
it.
I'm so mad.
Because I have a little theory about this, but we gotta start the podcast.
Oysters, tofu,
we gotta
like
start the podcast.
everything. Yes.
We gotta start the podcast.
This is part of the podcast.
It is part of the podcast, but we also have to do what is called an intro.
Oh, yes, our introduction.
What we just did was a cold open, ladies and gentlemen. So this is going to be the intro of the podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode 67 of the Get Realisms podcast. You heard that right, folks. 67 episodes. We're not
67.
fucking around here. Get Realisms podcast. I am Adam Chase Rennie.
And I am Christine Chen.
And look at that, ladies and gentlemen. We are here, and Christine is allergic to everything.
Everything. I'm so mad. Part of me wishes that I actually didn't take the test, so I just wouldn't know.
Oh, so you would kill yourself with all the nummiest foods that you're allergic to?
It's inflammation. So like, what is that? Does this just mean you get puffy and stuff? I don't know if it like necessarily kills you. I don't know, but it just says it's not that I'm like. It just says I get inflamed. I don't know what that means, but every time I eat oysters and tofu and crawfish, which is a lot, like I feel fine, but I guess I need to try to not eat those things. But then there's this fine line of like that stuff sparks lots of joy in me.
Right?
Do I really care to lose that joy just for help? Like just because of studies saying that have more inflammatory, my body DNA it becomes more inflamed if I eat those foods. I don't know. I'm a very.
Do you become flames?
It just says. I guess it's if you're inflamed, you just get more puffy and you get like.
No, I get it. It just I try to make a terrible joke, but
yeah, it was terrible.
You're allergic to everything, but like, so you only it's inflammatory foods.
Yeah,
basically
it's annoying because it's not even like unhealthy crap. I was expecting like gluten and like I don't know fried shit and just stuff I usually don't eat, but no, it's like healthy stuff that I
the good shit.
Yeah, the good stuff. How could it tofu? Like what the hell that people eat that? Yeah. What? Yeah. So I'm really mad. I haven't processed it entirely yet, but yes.
When did you get this? Like when did this happen?
I got the results yesterday and I looked at it and I was like, what the F? And then I closed it. So right now I'm in denial. I'm in denial right now. Yeah, I'm just in denial. I can't imagine not eating crawfish. Like that sounds.
For those of you who
awful.
don't know, Christine's a real like food is her vice. This is like food is everything to her. So like the fact that crawfish is gonna have to like somehow be in some way, shape, or form eliminated from her diet and not part of her life, it's pretty heartbreaking. It's pretty heartbreaking. That's like that's like telling a basketball player who like broke his ankle like you can't play basketball anymore. You know? It's just like
it is not like that.
That's not. It isn't like that. We're not comparing that, ladies and gentlemen. But what we are gonna talk about today, if you want, I did watch the Rust interview. I don't know if anybody
Yes, let's talk about that. Since I didn't watch it, so you're gonna have to tell me about it. So
Yeah. So it was fascinating. The
okay.
interview I will say is fascinating. And it felt like an interview that could have served as an opportunity to come clean about
Yeah.
literally everything.
Right. But it wasn't a
And
email.
instead, we're left from this interview with about more questions than we had even answered.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a problem because
Sure.
there's conflicting information and
Misleading.
we're also even talking
avoidant.
we even talked about the discussion of the camera department even getting involved with the safety and the lack thereof on the set, and how the camera department voiced their opinions via text messages, letters, and I think someone said phone call, but that's not confirmed, so it's only alleged at this point. But there's been numerous written things that were sent throughout production and throughout everybody who were involved in this case, that it was unsafe. Like the set was deemed unsafe, and they were already having one unsafe attempts after another. Like they had nothing but
unsafe.
just like shit that was sacrificing everyone's safety, or at least one person's safety. And at the behest of that was never brought up in the interview. Like that was just sort of like kind of and then even the topic of camera department. And listen, this is coming from the interview, so if anybody is upset by this is me reporting this. This is fair use.
Yeah.
So
we have no affiliation whatsoever.
We have no affiliation.
This is our unbiased, factual, just based off of watching the interview and knowing what facts there are in existence right now. Your opinion.
It felt like Baldwin at some point tried to relinquish his responsibilities, especially him in the position of producer. Now, let's just take a step back for a second and say, let's say, what if Alec Baldwin wasn't part of the producer? Well, then that's a completely different discussion, because then he's not part of any safety meeting. He's not part of any, real, like call sheet, like how the schedules are made, whatever, everything, right? That comes with production. Right. He was part of that, and he is producer. And he went on the interview and said that he was only affiliated with casting, and that was as far as his responsibility got. And that, to me, is a little suspect. I'm
gonna play devil's advocate on that, because that's not uncommon to be a producer only in a certain aspect. And I'm gonna link it back to Ursley. I have technically 3 producers, but one of them definitely was more of a creative producer. So she was involved in just casting alone. And then she came on, Candace, she came on set and would point out stuff like, oh, whatever was within the frame, what she liked or did not like, to protect the integrity for when distribution came. So in terms of logistics, she really had zero involvement in much of the logistics. Sometimes she would like make a comment here and there, but like when it comes to like actual being involved with logistics, she wasn't. So that's why I am playing devil's advocate, because I understand that standpoint too. And I think the world doesn't realize that there are these differences in producer and responsibilities. When you think producer, you think that they're involved with every aspect of the film. And yeah, sure, there are people like that are of that kind of producing. But if what he's saying is he was more of a creative producer, then it's not wrong.
Involved in casting. That's correct. The only alleged.
It's not wrong for him to say that.
No.
because that does change significantly how involved and how much responsibility he does have. So
Right.
yeah.
And in that case, yes, I absolutely agree. It does not change the fact that he was and is, and even admitted that he was involved in some of these safety meetings, in some of the safety precautions that he knew about. And he even talked that he spent an hour and a half with said prop gun, practicing, rehearsing, all that. That's fine and dandy. But the problem is that you went through all this trouble with the safety, yet didn't bother to go through another safety procedure, because his whole thing was like how he wanted to make sure he had a safe set on his side of the responsibility. So he just wanted to make sure that, hey, listen, I did my job in making sure that this set is going to be responsible for the safety that is being presented, what we're trying to make here. But what he failed to do was follow up with that. That's my thing. And he never, in what I'm seeing, followed up with. He never followed up with anything in terms of how they were gonna position themselves and how they were going to. And also too, on top of this was only a shot that Joel, the director, just threw in. This wasn't part of the script. So, and even, and to his credit, even the DP agreed. The DP was also, Helena, she was very much just like, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and add this scene. And they rehearsed it. And according to Alec Baldwin's, and trigger warning, by the way, everybody, this might get a little violent. When he was rehearsing the scene, Alec, he pulled the hammer of the prop gun, and the prop gun hammered back, thus fired off a projectile. So he's saying that he never pulled the trigger verbatim. Like he never really actually pulled on the trigger. They were just rehearsing through a scene, and they were trying to frame the gun right, and he pulled the hammer back, and the hammer snapped, and it fired.
Oh, okay. Well, that's weird.
That's weird.
Okay, so he's saying he never pulled the trigger, but the act of pulling back the hammer was
with the
enough
intention of locking it,
right,
and not firing. That was the point. But then the hammer just snapped and hit the barrel of the gun. I'm not a gun expert, everybody.
I don't
hit
either.
The barrel of the gun, and then the projectile shot thus.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's his story. And I'm not denying it. It probably happened. Mistakes or a misfire prop gun probably happened. But it just felt like he wasn't including himself with the production. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't really like saying like, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Like me and everyone else on this team, including the executive producers, fuck it, just make something up at this point. You already are, if you are. Just say that we're all going to get involved to really get to the bottom of what really happened and how we can prevent this from happening even ever again. He should have made that disclaimer, but instead,
I see what you're saying.
Listen, and I'm not trying to say he's victimizing himself.
Right.
That's exactly the opposite of what I'm trying to say. What I am saying, though, is his story lacks awareness of the production that was also involved with the safety precautions of everything.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Just as much on them as it is on Alec, if not probably more on the crew.
Right.
And Alec's not taking credit where credit's due. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can see that. It's the idea of like, I always joke about how when you're an AD, it's always still your fault, no matter if you're not directly involved or not. And it's kind of has to do with that. Yeah. It's the idea that like when you're of a certain position, it doesn't matter a lot of times whether you are directly involved with certain aspects, you still need to show some sort of responsibility just simply because you're in that position of power. So I believe that's what you're saying, is that
Mhm.
he was so busy separating himself from that responsibility because maybe in reality he did not have any involvement based off of what his position entailed,
Sure.
but in this kind of tragedy, it seems insensitive to completely wipe your to use an interview to wipe all responsibility from yourself when you should be saying that everybody within that higher power is trying to do the best they can to um, to figure out how to prevent problems like this from happening in the future.
That's all I was saying. Just
Yeah,
create
I can see that.
preventional awareness instead of just
Yeah,
victimizing yourself in the situation.
I can see that. Definitely. Especially when I'm sure he was still very aware that camera department and several departments
And
had
he said he
walked.
wasn't. He said the only thing
Ah,
that he was aware of was that one of the camera, I think he said the first, no, I need to get that right. I don't know. He said one of the ACs, one of the assistant camera, asked for a hotel room.
mhm,
And he basically said that this is the budget that we have. This is all that we got,
right.
and pretty much denied him. However, the camera, it goes way farther past, especially with receipts that the camera department even showed with text messages and letters
Yeah,
that Alec never even brought up.
yeah,
So why hide that if you want to have an honest, transparent set that relies on safety, especially through
mhm,
all the action that they're making and choreographing
right,
and training and practicing
right.
every day almost.
Yeah.
And you mean to
No,
tell me that
that's
this slipped through the cracks? Like, listen, I'm not one to, demand all the truth and nothing but the truth, because there's some shit that is just worth holding back because it doesn't need to be shed by light.
mhm,
However, if you do deem yourself that you want to have the most safe as possible set as you can, then transparency comes with that.
yes, of
And
course.
also if something happens, somebody's going to say something as well.
Right.
That's just kind of the right thing to do. That's not just like a rule, an unspoken rule in film. That's just a human thing to do. If you see something that just doesn't quite look right, mention it. Mention it to somebody. you know,
Yeah.
if you gotta, if it's threatening, if it's something that's gonna jeopardize someone's safety, yeah, you might need to speak up.
Yeah.
And it seemed like all the caution was thrown to the wind that Alec just did not address.
Mhm,
Now, if
mhm.
anybody in the comments seen the interview and want to contradict me and say that that's not true, I would love to hear your side of it, because that's kind of what I saw from this interview.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it's like you said, it's a little insensitive, especially when it comes to understanding the truth and the ramification of the situation, which nobody can really define how big this was. And all Alex said was, well, all I knew was from the police report that there were rounds of live rounds on set, you know
Mhm.
and the AD said cold gun, and then that happened. It's just like, I get it, but tell me what you're going to do to prevent this in the future, and also what you're going to do now to
To
get to the bottom of this, to understand
right.
the validity of the situation.
Yeah.
Like, this is such a real situation. You took a human's life. This is something worth examining. I know it's painful. I know it's hard. And I'm sure the victims and the families are absolutely heartbroken. But if I would love to get to the bottom of this, because I don't want this shit to happen ever again. Not saying
Yeah.
that we're going to be working with prop guns anytime soon. I think working with real fucking bullets, ladies and gentlemen, like blanks, are kind of a thing of the past.
I think it's a thing of the past. I think that's what it needs to boil down to.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be policies in place with film sets when it comes to live animation that there just shouldn't be. There's plenty of ways to cheat it now, you know, through VFX.
And apparently it's so cheap to create like gun effects. Like
yeah, I
through
had
VFX,
guns
like
on my
in
set.
Adobe Premiere. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, what?
We had 1, 2, 3. We had like 3 guns on our set. And
Ursula?
yeah. Ursula. Remember we had the shotgun, we had the one that Rhett has, and then we have the one that Isaiah has. We have 3 guns on our set. But
and shout out to Isaiah for safety precautions.
Yeah, it was Reese too. Yeah,
and
it was
Reese,
definitely
yes.
it was Reese. It was the entire art department and Isaiah, but it was like going through and plugging the gun up. It was going through and every time nobody walks off with the gun. It was no matter how rushed we were, Matt Stryker always going through and walking and looking at the guns and before and after lunch, no matter, the guns are locked up or we already had those guns with us 24/7. We always did that.
We were the only ones in the studio, you know? So but we still went through.
We still did it. It seems stupid sometimes, right? And yes, just doing that adds 5 to 10 minutes sometimes, but it is because we do that so that things like rust doesn't happen at all. There's no chance of it happening. You eliminate that. So,
and I think that's what's most alarming with that situation was when it happened, it was almost hard to believe at that point. It was just like, oh, wow. I thought we worked years and years and decades of working against this, and we're doing the very fucking thing again. Kirk 101 says, I didn't see the interview, but I'll have to check it out. Yeah. I mean, you know, if it's just take it for what you will. This is what I got from it. And I was, I guess, expecting differently from the interview. And I'm sure some people are going to say, I mean, what did you expect? I expected a little bit of responsibility and a little more awareness of the ramifications of the situation at hand, you know? And I understand he says that he vows never to shoot another gun ever again on screen. That's great. Still doesn't change the fact of what happened on that set happened.
Right.
And right now we're not blaming anybody, but we don't have the full story at all. And honestly, I looked at 2 different websites and it wasn't conclusive. There was just not any conclusive information of, well, this is what happened. Someone brought this, X had this, and then Y happened, you know? But I guess we just may never know. It was, in quote, a freak accident.
Yeah.
It could have just been like wrong place at the wrong time. Sure. But also Alec Baldwin said he went an hour and a half of practicing it with the gun. You know, and he went through all the safety and every scene that had any action in it. They repeatedly went through it over and over again. So we're not going to beat this with a dead horse. I think we made our point with this, unless there's something else you want to add, Christine, because I'm kind of curious, like, what your 2 cents into all this. I know you haven't seen the interview, unless you have.
I haven't seen the interview. I've seen how it's been interpreted and summarized by people just through articles and stuff. And it does, from how you're phrasing it and stuff, I can see how it can be extremely concerning that he's not taking or a bigger responsibility for it. And that's where I come into play and say that, like, as an AD, even if it's not your fault, you'll have a responsibility, and it's with great with these big roles, and even if you aren't the one who caused the lightning storm or caused this thing to break or whatever, you still have a responsibility for it because you are ultimately still responsible for your team. It has to do, and this is I don't know if you're offended by this, I'm sorry, but it has to do with too, like the Michigan high school shooting right now. And the parents are being possibly charged for involuntary manslaughter. But it's that idea of like, and it's very, I don't know how I feel about it, but it's the idea of like, you are ultimately responsible from a bigger picture, and I, I don't know. It sucks because I stress out about this all the time when I'm on set because you can't protect yourself from people's stupidity either. You try to, account for that. Sorry, that's us. That's me.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't, you try to account for it by building lots of protocol, by building rules, by yelling at people not to do certain things, but people are going to be people and they're going to make mistakes. And I think in those moments, you still have to take responsibility for, I'm so mixed about this because
Well, we
it's
don't
like
know.
if
We
I
weren't
have,
there on set, so
yeah,
it's really
and
hard.
the thing
I
is
know.
like, let's say I'm ADing and I told people not to walk across the street when there's a moving picture vehicle, right? And if that person still does that and gets killed, what the fuck do I do? Right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm extremely mixed about it because there is only so much you can do to protect people from their stupidity. This is an entirely different situation, obviously,
really good point.
because in this case, there already is a lot of evidence that there's a lack of negligence for safety protocols. So this is a very different aspect. Safety trickles down from the top down, right? And how a set should work is the producers allow for an environment where safety protocols are taken seriously and that time and money will not affect the time that you spend on what will keep your crew safe. And this is very hard. In the moment, it is extremely difficult. And I understand that, especially when you're on the low budget and everything, and you're getting pressure from all sides. And I'm talking about this from an AD perspective as well. But a great example, though, on a set that I was on, it was nothing crazy in terms of safety, but I was on a set in LA, in Fraser Park, director Sung Kang, who was awesome. And we were rushing because of time and everything. And there was a vehicle that was parked, and when they hinged the brake, it started moving like slowly, but it definitely freaked out, the person who was trying to give the art person that was Nicole that was trying to give a prop to the actor, and Sung shut it down real quick and was like, let's all stop, let's take a breather. And it was a good 15 minutes. So like we lost 15 minutes, but I appreciate that from him because he stopped everything. He was like, look, yes, that was a tiny thing. Nobody got hurt. The car just moved a little bit and we freaked out a little bit, but like there should be no reason why we should rush to the point where safety is compromised. And it takes leadership like that to ensure that everybody is safe and well. And so that's where I see what's lacking on Rust and why someone like Alec Baldwin should take responsibility for. Yes, maybe he wasn't involved in the logistics or it was just in the casting or whatever, but he is a producer. And maybe even saying that, hey, though I was not part of that, I want to ensure that this doesn't happen. Just simply saying that is important, I think. Because it starts from the top down, because the producers give pressure, right, to the AD to finish off something on time and under budget, right?
Yeah.
And then the AD is getting pressure because they're running out of time and therefore budget. And between that disconnect, it's one or the other has to give. The AD has to say, like, well, fuck it, like, no, we're not going to continue. Like, I'm going to take this extra 15 minutes to check all the guns and stuff like that. Or the producers on the top have to be like, hey, it's fine. If we go over today, that's okay, because we have to check these guns, you know? So
And we
it just
didn't
seems like
compromise
on
safety.
the set, it was both problems, right? The producers probably were rushing. The AD gave into that rushing and, you know, didn't really think that that was a big deal, and then didn't do extra checks. Then that translated to the armorer, who didn't have much experience and didn't
Her
know
second set, yeah.
her second set. That's very terrible. So it all that compounded into the loss of the life. And so that's why there's all these checks and balances. And
And
it
just to
just
make
seemed
sure,
like,
oh, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I would just
I'm
say
sorry.
it just seems like every single check didn't get checked off at all, which is
Right.
what's alarming in this situation.
And that's the point Christine's trying to make. So before anybody on the comics just freak out saying that like we're trying to pin blame here, we're doing the opposite. In fact, we're not pinning blame on anybody, because like you said, everything just trickles down. So you have no idea what is happening on that set. None of us were there. Spoiler alert,
Right.
none of us were there. So we don't know the full understanding of what truly happened that day, or even that set period. So there's a lot of missing pieces here, but at the same time, yes, you have all these responsibilities,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and if you're not following through with them, especially one that just slips through the cracks, just one, it could end up costing a life. And the fact that we're on this film set, and I watched the podcast with Kevin Smith talking about this, and he mentioned, he was like, I think we're getting away from the fact that like we're all not having fun on a film set. He's like, we
Yeah.
all, at the end of the day, we got to remember that this is fucking fun. We're
Supposed to be, yeah.
we're making shit and pretend happen. Why the fuck would you want to have a live ammunition live round when you can easily make it in post that looks
Right.
really good for
Right. It may not be
probably.
perfect, but does it really matter? Movies are made to
And he
suspend
said that too.
disbelief.
He said that. He was like, as a guy who don't use guns in movies, he's very talky. He only has dialogue in his movies. It's always like mumblecore with this guy. He was like, yeah, that's not the point. You don't want to get a real fucking thing that could jeopardize someone's life just at the expense of, well, it looks cool.
Right. Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating, because I in this instance, without having been on set, I can see where the hierarchy breakdown went awry. And it's what I think, for me, what's alarming about this set is how it's broken in every single aspect of safety. From the fact that there were crew members who walked because their safety concerns were not addressed is already one huge ass flag. The fact that the armorer did not have experience is another big ass flag. The fact that anybody touched any kind of trigger and that the gun was cleared in the first place is a big ass flag, right? So in this case, no matter how uninvolved you are with the logistics of something, as a leader, you are you need to take some sort of responsibility. And it's the whole thing where I'm like, when I'm an AD, I know that everything is my fault.
To a certain extent,
To
I
a
guess.
certain degree.
Yeah.
That's why ADs have a very short life expectancy, apparently. It is extremely stressful. And I'm about to experience that next week with a lot of car work. We're about to do things on the street and all that jazz. And I'm gonna have to put my foot down on things. But like, it sucks because I can only tell it from my experience. I mean, I can tell it from both experiences as a producer and AD. Nobody's ever going to be happy. Even when you're super safe, people are still not going to be happy because you're going to say like, all right, I'm going to shut the set down for 15 minutes so we can do the safety stuff. Well, then the producers aren't happy because you just wasted 15 to 20 minutes, right? Or you are low budget, so you weren't able to shut down the street. Okay, so in lieu of that, you have two PAs that are in safety vests helping out with stopping the streets when they can. Well, then the sound person's not happy because then there's traffic and there's bad sound and stuff like that. So in every direction, I think that's the hardest part about being in this kind of position of responsibility, is that somebody is still not going to be happy no matter how much. And you kind of, in those situations, have to just be like, fuck it. I know that people aren't going to be happy, but if it's going to compromise safety, I don't care if you think I am a bitch or that like you don't like me because I'm doing this, or like we won't hire me again because we went over for an hour or two because of safety stuff. Like, I don't care. Like that's individually how you need to take control of future sets, is to know what you will or will not sacrifice for the safety of your crew and cast. And it goes with producing as well, it's hard. You sacrifice shots, you cut shots. And that's what we were doing originally. We cut stuff because cut more things to make it more simple. Okay, there's water and it's high and it's fast. There's no effing way I'm going to throw people into that, running water. This is supposed to be a fun film. Like, okay, I get like the water is an important aspect of the script, but I can rewrite that, right? I can rewrite it and make it work without jeopardizing people's safety. And, that's what we did. But in the moment, it's hard. It's mentally, emotionally difficult. One, as a creator, you're seeing like your thing change, but really I think what's the hardest is that knowing that you made these sacrifices and people are still not going to support you or be happy or, is the hardest part. And it's just something you just have to live with,
Right. Because it's on them at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we don't have the power to change people's minds, but we do have the power to make things right.
Right.
And we have the power to lead by example, especially.
Yeah.
And if they can't do that for whatever X reason, it's on them, right?
Yeah. And it sucks. Yeah, being an AD sucks, Kirk.
Yes.
It is a position of high responsibility, and nobody's ever happy with you. You're either the fun spoiler because you have to tell everybody to shut the fuck up and keep working, or you're the again safety Nazi, and so producers are mad at you because you took more time to do that. It's being AD is hard.
But I think equally too, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt,
No,
Christine, but I
please.
feel like this is a good point to bring up. They equally also understand people, especially working on sets like I worked on, that don't have a first AD and wish to fucking dear God that I had a first AD on that set. I learned to appreciate ADs that tell me to shut the fuck up and stop talking. because I don't shut my mouth. Sometimes I just go running my mouth, and there's a couple of ADs who just have to like turn around and be like, Adam, and I'm like, okay, and I know I'm not, and that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, like you got to understand that these people have one specific agenda in their mind, the same agenda that you have. Make the best thing that you can possibly make. And they have their set agenda of responsibilities. You have your set agenda of responsibilities. And the fact that your responsibilities is conflicting with so-and-so's responsibilities, and you're now going to blame the first AD because you can't do your responsibilities, even though they're trying to do theirs. Do you understand where I'm going with this? Like, I'm not saying that people just be nicer, but be fucking aware of the people around you, especially when you know more times than not that the first AD, like Christine says, is usually the first one to get the shit end of the stick. That's just kind of the way it goes. And I mean, that even just saying that just doesn't sound right, but it's sort of true. Because you got to understand, like, they're responsible for so much that I don't think people in other departments who never understood, and I never really understood assistant directing departments, but I've worked in plenty of production assistant gigs to witness these first assistant directors really, really go through the fucking gauntlet. As opposed to, and I'm not trying to compare apples to oranges here. I'm not saying that one other department head isn't also going through tough shit. I'm sure they are. Everybody is. You're making pretend, but that's the point you're missing. You're making pretend, and you're taking this as if anything anyone tells you that you can't do or that they don't have enough time for acts like it's a shot at your ego. And it's not, because no one's coming after anybody.
Right.
Nobody. So we're all in this together. And just because, the first AD says, shut the fuck up, means that you can't stop talking, and you need to stop talking. You understand? Like, it's so fucking simple that it's so hard for even the most simple people can't wrap their heads around. And I understand sometimes, people just don't want to listen, and then sometimes people just want to watch the world burn. But, that's neither here nor there. I am here in the business, and Christine's also in the business of making film and making pretend and doing this shit and having fun with it. Because that's the way it's supposed to be, ladies and gentlemen. And
nothing is worth someone's life.
And nothing's worth someone's life, especially making a movie. It's really, and there's so many ways to cheat, to manipulate and fool the audience to thinking that one thing's enough. It's just like, movies so much magic that honestly, you won't even need a lot of people sometimes, depending on the script and shit like that. So the fact that a live gun, it's just, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to me, that somebody will go well far out of their way to get a prop gun to fire real bullets for the sake of making a cool fucking ass whatever shootout. Listen, I get it. I love cool shit just as much as the next guy. You don't understand how much cool shit I love. I love action movies. I was raised on action movies. Jackie Chan's basically my father. He raised me in Jet. I love action movies so much, but I also know equally how awesome VFX can be, and how many movies I was fooled before working in the industry that half of the movies I love with gunfights are all VFX. They're all VFX. Like, most of the gunfights that I love, they're like, oh yeah, that's actually VFX. We put it in post because, you know, the camera department is really close to the fucking shooters. It's not like we're gonna have real fucking bullets
Yeah.
shooting past the fucking camera department. Are we idiots? No, we're not. You
Yeah.
know? So VFX,
Yeah.
you know?
And this is also, I think, for people who are ADs, that we always just have to remember that in the moment it might be annoying and stressful when you've got certain like crew being like voicing their safety concerns or asking you to triple check certain things or whatever. But at the end, like I will always appreciate people who do that. That's part of being a part of a production, right? It's not every man for themselves. It's everybody looking for the good of the entire team. And so for all the times that camera department or sound or somebody freaks out on me about, oh, we're in the street, is this locked down? Or like, hey, do we have somebody up there locking down the street? Or did we check that gun or taser or whatever? Thank you. I think that's you guys
Thank you.
doing your
Yeah.
part. Yeah. And that should happen more often. And I think what Russ teaches us is that we all have to, even if it's not our department, we all have to look out for each other on set to ensure that everybody is human. That's when it comes down to it, is everybody's human, everybody makes mistakes, and mistakes will happen. No matter how much you try to prevent them or plan for them, they will happen. And so when there's more eyes, more ears watching and making each other accountable, that's how we prevent and mitigate a lot of those mistakes. So that also means that I think there has to be mutual understanding between the AD and the crew, right? Like, I think if crew can understand a bit of what the AD is going through in terms of what they're trying to do in terms of safety and whatever, and approaching their concerns more as a, hey, just helping you out, and I just want to double check this. I'm sure you got this, but did you check this? Instead of seeing the AD as someone who's like a bad guy trying to limit their time for their craft and art and all that stuff, I think that would also be a mutually beneficial thing as well. So it's got to be both. The AD's got to be very understanding when these concerns are being voiced and to actually hear it and process and listen. I think that's the part that I'm always trying to be better at is, when you're stressed out, you've got like 50 people telling you like, is the street locked up and all this other stuff. And then like, are there safety vests and all? It's a lot. It's a lot to handle. But then it's up to me to also be okay to slow down just a little bit and be able to push back on any pressure that's on me from the above the line in order to do my job properly. So it's a push and pull from all directions. It's a nice balance of push and pull. And I think the best ADs know how to balance that, or try at least.
Right.
Yeah.
And also have like like a necessary control that doesn't also feel like it's impeding on the experience of the set as well.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
also a delicate balance.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. Because ultimately, like you said, film set, yes, it is work. We are all working on this and it is our job. It is still a privilege to be able to do something like being on film and make believe and play. And it shouldn't be a place where people forget and forgo safety and are so stressed out of their minds that it's no longer about human interaction and more about numbers and logistics. It should never be that way.
No.
Yeah.
It should never be about numbers and logistics. And it also should never be about, how, I don't know, how well, whatever, some movie is whatever response to someone's movie, also ultimately is backed by a really good set, like a really good crew, and sometimes in order to make a good movie, you have to have that great fucking crew behind you, because that's half the fucking battle. The other half is the creative side of it, is actually executing it, and then also all the other shit that comes with it that will destroy your plans, but then ultimately you have to pivot and adapt and all that jazz. I feel like a lot of times even some directors lose touch of what that core privilege is in that you're making pretend. And motherfucker, this is fun. I love it. This is my life. And it breaks my heart every set that I work on, that I've seen director, and not just directors, like
it's honestly heads. It's every department, because the thing is, like, you're getting a group of people who are, if you're on a good set, perfectionists, and what they're each doing is their art, right? And everything that prevents them from doing their best art seems like a direct attack on their department.
Right.
But in the end, it's not about any one department, and that's the thing that people forget. It's really not even about the end product is important, but I think the hardest sets have been on the suckiest ones, have been the ones that only care about the final product and not about the people that are in that journey to make that product. I think more so than ever, it's the journey that is more important.
Oh my God.
I think that's very hard for people to understand from the different departments, especially from a director standpoint or a producer standpoint, because they're all about, like, we want to make a great movie, right? So I think that's why it's like, having worked now for many, many years, it's rare to have good set, good movie. That's very hard to have. It's easy to have bad set, good movie. It's easy to have bad set, bad movie, or good set, bad movie. But it's very hard to have good set, good movie, because there's just so many factors, and it's like, think about it. Game of Thrones, right? Like, my friend worked on Game of Thrones, and he says it was the worst set he's ever worked on. But we're watching it and we're like, this is the most amazing thing we've ever seen. But my friend is like, yeah, but we're working in sub-degree temperatures, like out 15-hour days for months, minimal time off. Yeah, we're creating art, but that's where it ceases to be fun anymore.
Right.
So I don't know. It's fascinating. I think about that quite a lot. I thought a lot about it on Ursley, just because for me, when I was directing and producing, the moments when I was truly happy were actually not that much. There was moments when I was very, very happy, but there is so incredible stress or responsibility when you're doing both, that that's why I'm like, I don't know if I want to produce and direct again. I still love directing, but man, when you do both, it really is a conflict of interest a lot of the times, you know?
You think
So,
so?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's a huge conflict of interest a lot of times because it's like directing, you're like, oh, I want to do this scene 50 times until it's right. Now producing, you're like, no, you have 11 days, right? And then
Figure it out, stupid. Yeah.
yeah, figure it out. Or it's like, well, in my head, this is where it was always shot. But then producing, it's like, well, I'm sorry, but it rained and the river is flooded, so this is what you have to work with. You know, so it's a conflict. It's always, I mean, that is also what makes movies great, right? Is this like compromise between these two very different factors, the art, the business. So I don't know. It's interesting.
I mean, I felt I didn't see you. What I didn't see was you like at all cracking under pressure or feeling like as if you were just overwhelmed. I see you were busy. I see that you are in your world and that you are just in tunnel vision mode. So meaning like you're in work mode. You're not
Yeah.
you're not paying attention to other shit. I've seen you do that, but nothing to the extent of you actually stressing out. And I don't think I've really like just like I don't think I've ever seen you at your most angriest.
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever seen you at your most stressed because you cross a threshold to your stress to the point where you take a step back and you just sort of like go in autopilot mode and you're just like, okay, something's wrong, but I'm really I need to focus on these 10 problems in front of me first. and then I'll address everything else around me later, you know.
Yeah.
And I definitely see that. And you don't seem like the type of person that just like you've worked with and I've worked with and probably even Kelly has worked with so many people, friends of our podcast have worked with like producers and directors who are just not that at all,
Yeah.
who just are the opposite of that.
I I feel like I do deal very well under pressure. So I don't think a lot of
Yeah.
people are able to do that. Kirk has a fun question, which is, but doing both, can't you balance yourself out more instead of bumping heads with someone over the opposite? Yes,
Mm.
to a degree, but I think what it is that what I didn't like was when you're a producer, all the problems always stem from the logistics. They always boil down to the logistics and how well you plan for those logistics or what outside forces affect those logistics and break them. And when you're dealing with logistics, you're going to deal with unhappy people. And for me, I'm an empath and I soak up all of that unhappiness and it becomes my unhappiness. And then I suffer from that. And it directly impacts the way I feel about when I'm directing. And it will be a dream when I can just watch all that stuff go down and not have to be affected emotionally by it and allow myself to purely just think about directing. And I have not had that yet. What's great about when you produce and direct is, yes, you don't have to rely on anyone as much. So you can always count on yourself. I know that I will put in the extra 15 hours or whatever and work overtime and work 22 hours a day. And I'm okay with that because it's me, right? And but I cannot expect that. And I shouldn't expect that from anybody else because that's not right. You know, people should be paid for their time and energy and everything. But when it comes to me, I can do that. And so when you do both as a producer and director, you have a lot more control on that aspect. And that comes with not having the luxury of money. And so for my first film that had a small ass budget, I don't think there would have been any other way that could have been done. Like that was the way it had to be done. I was the only person who knew this property inside and out. I knew this, how I would schedule my film inside and out. I knew every single aspect of how I wanted this film. And so there was really no way that I could not be that involved from a producing standpoint on the film. But I think where I will be able to maybe stand out from it is when it gets too big and there's just no possible way. Like I have scripts that are definitely like the logistics of it are going to be astronomical, and there is physically not possible for me to be involved in every single aspect because I lack the knowledge, one, and two, just don't, if I don't relinquish the control, then the directing is just going to suffer completely. So I think that's what I'm trying to say is that, like, yes, you can balance yourself to a certain extent, but then it's hard for one job or the other to not trickle into each other and then render both neutral or just bad, like then you're just not good at one or the other, and I could see that. Like I could see while I was directing Ursley being very emotionally impacted by people's concerns and very valid concerns and complaints, and it's hard when it's something you've spent all your time raising the money for and you're emotionally invested in it, that you can't look at things is it objectively anymore.
Yeah.
You can't take yourself out from it. Every little concern becomes an attack, a direct personal attack on you, and it shouldn't be that way. So when there's a separation, it's no longer that, because you're emotionally detached from that process, if that makes any sense.
It does.
So if somebody else raised the money, if somebody else did the logistics, and somebody else, did stuff, if something was wrong with that, it becomes just a problem and not an actual emotional direct, criticism of yourself as a person. And I think that's the part that I struggled with the most on Ursley, was that because I was so emotionally tied with every aspect of the process, any kind of problem became a direct reflection of who I was and my abilities as a producer, a director, or even really as a person. It hurt when people would say, "Oh, the food wasn't good today." Like emotionally hurt. When if I was just a producer and that was my sole job and the food was bad, I was like, all right, let's go figure it out and fix it. It's just a problem. We're going to fix it. It's fine. The emotional aspect isn't tied to it. Right. But because I was so involved with it, just a little fact like that would like spin me out of I would feel terrible. I would feel like, oh my gosh, everybody hates me, or like this is an awful experience for people, and I feel really sad about it and stuff like that. And that would translate or affect when I direct, because I would not be at my emotionally at the right place. Does that make sense?
It makes 100%
Like, yeah.
sense, because
And so
you're
I think,
already broken down.
yes,
How
I'm
can
already
you
broken
follow
down.
through
Yes.
doing the very thing that you set yourself up to be directing?
Yeah. I think the hardest day for me
hard.
on set was the pool day when we're doing the pool scene.
Listen, that was hard for everybody.
Yeah.
That was hard for the entire crew.
Stupid hard.
It was really hard
because like there were things that were not within my control.
That's what I was going to say. It was out of your control. There's no way for you to, yeah. There's so much about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I couldn't anticipate that. Despite telling the location 50 million times to fix the pool lights, that the pool lights would not be fixed.
But you won't see that in the final cut because
Exactly.
it'll look gorgeous.
I know.
Everybody, beautiful. You see me? Facebook beat you in a
No, it looks
fall.
awesome. But like in the moment, like you're experiencing that, and then you've got an angry DP who refuses to work because I understand this is a direct impact on his or her, you know, art.
Yeah.
And it's an insult to that, you know, and sure, I get that. And then so now I'm feeling bad because the pool lights aren't working, and I'm also feeling bad because the crew is wondering like why the F we aren't shooting because the set's been stopped because the DP won't refuses to work because he's angry because of this situation. And then on top of that, I'm still dealing with girls in the pool who are cold as fuck and like trying to make it look like she can swim like a mermaid, and there's pool lights and we have limited amount of time. It's also an overnight. People are already angry and sad and tired, and it all boils down, and it's a lot to take when it's like it feels like it's all your fault, you know.
Yeah, well,
So
because you feel like the cards are stacked against you,
yeah,
and
the
I
cards are stacked
understand
against
that.
you. Yeah,
I completely understand.
yeah,
That's not what I saw on this set, but
that's good.
I understand, right? But I think I can say that and speak on behalf of a lot of people on that set. Now, I can't speak on everybody for sure. I'm sure, whatever. But that was hard day. Period. End of story. That was just a
Yeah,
hard day, and yeah, as a result of that, sure, it felt like the cards were stacked against you, but that only made you so much bigger because, or so much better, that much better, because through the rest of the days, it didn't feel like that fucking pool day. I can
yeah,
assure you,
that was the worst.
that was the worst.
And then
It
everything
was
else was
maybe
mildly better.
the finale,
The
maybe.
finale was hard, but for me, honestly, for
But
me,
it
I
was
was
more hard for you than it was for the crew. The crew like
yeah,
set their shit
I
up, and then you and Isaiah were coordinating and shit. And then, the talent, of course,
yeah,
it was hard
I
for
think
them, of course,
for
but
me, it wasn't the finale. The finale was logistically insane, but
it was.
I
It
felt
was.
prepared. Like I felt by that time we all had worked out our differences and we knew how we each were and we knew what our environment was like and we knew that we had just had to deal with it emotionally and physically. And we were just excited that that was the last thing we were shooting and we were about to be done. So by that point, it was I thought the finale went very smooth, despite the fact that the beach was flooded, everything that had blocked was basically thrown in the trash can. And but that's where the strength of the crew came in. Like you guys gave me the time to be with the cast to rehearse, and then you guys went and took the responsibility of getting all those pickups that we needed off on your own. Francis ran that and got what we needed, and I trusted that. So by that time, I trusted things were working, and then Stryker had come onto his own and was taking charge and everything. So at that point, I think that was the one day that I did not have a walkie. I think that was the only day I did not have a walkie. Yeah.
Was
Remember,
finale,
I
yeah.
took it off and I was like,
Yeah.
I literally can't. Like, here you go. I trust that you guys have learned everything that you need to know up to this point for this exact moment.
Well, you wouldn't understand how infuriating it would be because we're literally asking specifically first AD questions, and every so often Chrissy would just chime in on the walkie to answer production questions to the point where that's why I wanted Nikki on the pod, because I wanted to point out the fact how many times did Christine chime in on the walkie when really it was like a question just for production in general. And Christine's like, yeah, it's over there, it's over at the barn, over at the barn, we're gonna be at the barn. Like you already had like, that's the thing that so many people don't understand, that I wish they understand about you, Christine, is how well you work. It's almost like you have a photographic memory, and you just understand exactly where everything's supposed to go. Even though it feels chaotic, it feels like everything's just sort of all over the place. But for some fucking reason, it all somehow comes together. I don't know how you do it, probably by wizardry, I'm assuming. But all the less you get it done. It's all got done. We still got that pool shit done.
We got it done.
We still got it done, regardless if you felt like your pride and your happiness was destroyed. I understand you were just sad. You know, you're just sad. You're a sad girl sitting by the pool, just, you know, like,
Yeah.
but all in all, it's still, you still made it happen. You still got it through, and we're able to laugh about it. We're able to just understand that this was just stupid. And all the other people who did give a shit about it and also took this way too seriously, go fuck yourself. Like, shut up. We're all making pretend. We're all having fun. And we're also a bunch of fucking idiots too. We're not even, listen, even the most highly regarded, most well-respected of any crew member, whatever, you can be part of any fucking union. You can still be an asshole and an idiot. You know, it's still nonetheless, we're all dumb. So we're all make mistakes, and we're human. We all inherently make mistakes.
Yep.
So I honestly, I mean, I look forward to more shit, doing shit like that, you know, because I mean, know
we came out of battle and we survived, and that film is about to be done. Like it really is. Like I think by the end of December, it's going to be done. Like no mix, like completely done.
Oh,
and it's scheduled tentatively to be released in May. So for the fact that we did all that with production, pre-production, and post-production for $225,000, and get it all done within a year, and that's what it is, from creation to delivery within a year, is pretty freaking like amazing about our team. So I'm very proud of us. And
we're proud of you, Christine.
We've grown a lot, and now we know what to do and what not to do next time. So
while also making other mistakes that are just inevitable. And
we're people. Of course, it's always
it doesn't kill us. It's just going to make us that much smarter, you know, and that much more prepared for next time. Exactly. I wanted to ask you though, like, unless, do you have a hard out? Because it'll be this last question.
We can go for another like 10. Go ahead.
So I just want to ask you why that gap? So you say you're finishing in December, but it won't be released till May.
Yeah. So
is that a distribution thing?
Yeah. So what happens is that they when you deliver your stuff, so I have to deliver all my materials by February. Technically, if I wanted to release this film in February, I would have had to deliver everything by December. But it was like December like 20th or something that's already passed, basically. I was trying very hard to. If I wasn't on a feature, 27-day long feature, I might have been able to make that. But I realized very quickly that was unrealistic for my sanity and mental health. So I had to push back. Like I had to really think about it, because there's always this fear, right? Like, oh, if I don't take this opportunity and seize it now, it's never going to come back, you know?
Right.
And I got past that really quickly, and, you know, told Han, our executive producer, like, hey, dude, I know you want these materials like today, basically, but I'm literally on set right now. 22 people, cast members are asking me questions, plus another 50 crew members. And I have barely had enough sleep. And I'm going to do my power to go home and work on all these deliverables. But I can tell you that I am not confident that I can get it done. And I flat out, it hurt to say it, but I've told him, if this means that this deal is done, I'm sorry, but then I'm okay with that. You know, I had to tell him that. I was like, if this means that I will have to go look for other distribution or whatever, I understand, because like you guys are just trying to do your job, but like I really physically, mentally cannot do it anymore. And I think they went and did some negotiations or whatever, and they really want this. So they're like, okay, we can push it to February as a deliverable, and then we release, which would mean that your release wouldn't be until May. And I was like, I'm cool with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because then you have, I want to say you have ample amount of time, but you have time. You have time kinda to to just get everything you need done. That's awesome, Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it takes a lot, especially when it comes to the back end of post-production. It's really like, it's also a daunting fucking task that regular crew members don't have to deal with.
It's
But
hard.
unfortunately, producers and directors have to deal with it.
It was
Yeah.
getting through this is one of the hardest things I've ever done so far.
I bet.
But what's great, this is insider information, was that I showed remember when we had the podcast and the crew was there because we were there to do a screening at Ben's house. Well, Ben said that his parents really actually enjoyed the film and that his dad is now like, hey, if she has something else down the pipeline, that he would be willing to invest in me. And I thought that was damn cool. Like, at least I got that right. So I'm on the right trajectory. So for him to be able to say that, like, I'm like, okay, cool. So Ben's like, so like I told him about the scripts he told me about there was a wine one and stuff, like he's interested in that one. And so like so who knows, maybe the next opportunity will come a lot faster than we think it will. So
holy shit. You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? We're not fucking done.
We are not done yet.
we're very far away from being. I'm very far away from being done. Christine seems to be very far away from being done.
Oh no, we're just getting started.
Yeah, no, we're warming up, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, we're still gonna have more adventures. We're still gonna have more episodes. But speaking of episodes, I think our time is coming to an end, Christine.
Yes.
Because I have to 10-1 real bad.
All good. And I've got to go and eat and get ready to go see Dune.
You're gonna see Dune?
Yeah, and IMAX. I'm so stoked.
Oh really? I just bought my Spider-Man ticket too. Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be the first time I'm back to the movie theaters in a big bad fucking way.
Yeah, I haven't seen a movie the entire year.
Neither have I. It's just been
very sad.
Friends' homes and my home, and that's it.
Yeah.
So. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in next week for another episode of the podcast of Get Realism's podcast. Get your books. Do I have to say anything more, ladies and gentlemen? Get your books.
Yes, order them. We have today. Our holiday specials are still going on right now. They're really good for Christmas gifts if you don't know about it. Also, we got like 4 it accidentally, but our international sales are open as well. And I think we're going to keep them open. It was an accident, but
you hear that? Worldwide?
Yeah. Worldwide.
We're ready to go.
We're ready to go
Those
worldwide.
pink packages are coming to you.
So we have one going to France, to UK, to Austria, to Australia. So right now, it's pretty cool.
That's fucking dope. You see that, ladies and gentlemen? Christine's an international businesswoman. So without further ado, this has been the Get Realism podcast, ursleyfilm.com for all your previous Get Realism season 3 episode needs. We have episodes, we have audio episodes updated in Spotify. So if you want to go back and listen to some stuff while you're driving, while you're commuting, you want some time to pass, I want to hang out with a couple of film nerds and see what's happening. Get on the Get Realisms on Spotify and all your podcasting needs. And GetRealisms.com. Pick up a poster, pick up a book, pick up everything.
Please. And thank you for those who participate. Thanks, Kirk. We love it when you listen and give comments.
Shout out to Kirk 101.
Yeah, shout out
You're
to
awesome,
you, Kirk.
dude. We appreciate you. We love seeing you chime in on the comments. We love it. Keep going. And to everyone else, especially anybody on Facebook who's been keeping up with us, we love you as well. We haven't forgot about you. But if you want a good experience, go on our Instagram live. You can comment where we can see the comments there and stuff. We're going to try to figure out a way to simplify all this shit, but that requires time and maybe money that Christine and I don't have. So
Yet.
we're not yet. Exactly.
Yeah. It's always one or the
yes.
other. It's like I have money and then I have no time, and then I have time but no money.
Right. Same. All right, guys. All right, gang. That's been real. Thank you for the Get Realisms podcast for tuning in every week. We appreciate all of you guys. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye, Instagram. Goodbye. Bye.